Very good morning. We will start the parallel session 4 in Hall D from 11:30 to 1 o'clock. This session would go. The chair for this session is Professor Jayant Kumar, Professor of Civil Engineering at IISc Bangalore. The co-chair is Dr. Rajeev Saha, Professor NIT Agartala. And then we have 4 presentations, and including the presentation by Professor Muthu Kumaran in this session, special lecture by Professor Muthu Kumaran. Let me have the pleasure of introducing Professor Jayant, the chair of this session. Professor Jayant Kumar is Professor in Geotechnical Engineering, IISc Bangalore, and in fact, I am happy to inform you that he was our teacher, and he is very meticulous, and research also very meticulously. He works on problems. He is working on lower and upper bound limit analysis with usage of finite element methods. This is related to problems of foundations, tunnels, underground excavations have been addressed in soil and rock media, accounting for the presence of seepage and earthquake body forces. He also works on slipline solutions in geomechanics, and also he is actively working on in situ shear velocity profile of ground and pavements by using multi-channel analysis surface waves. So he is also actively working on the effect of saturation and stress cycles and dynamic properties of soils by using the resonant column and Bender-Raymond tests. And he is also working on different isolation methods for designing foundations subject to vibrations. I take this opportunity to extend a hearty welcome to Professor Jayant sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Dinesh.
I request you to chair this session. Then we have the co-chair for this session, Dr. Rajeev Saha, Professor, NIT Agartala. And he is actively engaged in numerical and experimental research on earthquake-related problems with prime focus on use of locally available material. I take this opportunity to extend a hearty welcome to Professor Rajeev sir to request him to co-chair the session and carry forward this session. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Dinesh, and other esteemed delegates over here. Thank you very much.
Over to chair and co-chair.
Thank you very much, Professor Dinesh. So very, very good morning to all the participants in this session now. So we are going to have a special lecture to be given by Professor K. Muthu Kumaran, who is a professor in civil engineering at NIT Trichy. A little introduction about the Professor Muthu Kumaran. He works in the area of soil structure interaction. He is holding 2 patents to his name, and he has written 5 book chapters. He has received many awards. He is an editorial member of Journal of Civil Engineering and Architecture, and he has published quite a few papers in different national and international journals. And he has been actively involved in the consultancy projects, and he has guided 4 PhD theses, 4 MS theses, and 40 MTech dissertation. So I request Professor M. Muthu Kumaran to kindly start sharing his presentation slides. And I would request him to finish his presentation in about roughly about 25 minutes of time, 25 minutes. And all subsequent speakers, I request to make a presentation in about 10 minutes time. And you can ask the question in the chat box in case if you are unable to speak. And for the main lecture, we'll have about 10 minutes of discussion time. And for subsequent 3 lectures, we'll have roughly about 5 minutes of discussion time. So I request Professor Muthu Kumaran to kindly start giving his presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your nice introduction. Very good morning, all. This is the topic, special topic, dynamic characteristics of lunar soil simulant. So basically we call it as LSS ISAC 1 for moonquake analysis. So welcome you all to the special lecture. And at the outset, I thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity to present our recent research on lunar soil simulant. So what is a special objective of this space mission. So there are a couple of objectives involved in the space mission. And with respect to the particular space mission, whether it is a moon mission or Mars mission, accordingly, we have to decide the objectives. In this particular mission, I'm more concerned with respect to the lunar mission, the mission to moon, and hope you are all very well known about our Chandrayaan mission 1, 2, and the forthcoming 3 as well. Chandrayaan mission 1 was 100% successful one, and 2 partially succeed. And we are expecting 100% success rate for Chandrayaan mission, the mission 3. So the basic objective is to perform a mobility activity on low gravity and vacuum on the moon surface, conduct semi-autonomous navigation and hazardous avoidance capability, and carry out scientific experiments for the elemental analysis of the lunar surface near the landing site. So these are the primary objective of space mission related to lunar, especially the Chandrayaan mission. So this mission will be a precursor for a technology demonstrator and provides more data for our future and more complex rover mission to the moon and Mars and beyond. So this is the basic idea related to any space mission. Coming to the more, moon mission, towards the moon colonization, there are a few reasons why we are very keen on moon mission and what are the favorable aspects we have towards the moon mission and what are our expectations. It is not a fantasy, but it is a distinct reality for various advantages like 1/4 of escape velocity on the moon. This is one of the important aspects we have to keep in our mind when we talk about the interplanetary mission, especially the escape velocity is almost reduced by 75% of the velocity what we have in Earth. And the second important aspect is 1/6 G. So that tremendously going to reduce the self-weight of the complete rovers, the mission system, especially the rocket and all other corresponding components. So that particular weight has been drastically going to reduce. I'm just making a comparison between Earth and Moon. So these two are the important favorable properties as far as the space mission concerned, especially for when you are talking about the interplanetary mission. So which enable the economical and interdisciplinary missions in the future. So hence the futuristic trend is to establish a launch post for launching the rocket and including lab and testing facilities in the moon with limited residential shelter for the astronaut. So these are the very important focus towards the futuristic study related to the moon colonization. And as we are all very well known, transporting any building material from Earth will be completely costly and it's not viable. Hence, the lunar structures need to be realized using local rheolithic material. So that is the main focus of our particular research. And we are a part of this research. We did a little bit related with in this to redress this aspect for the current research scenario. And we are on the way. We have not reached completely. So therefore, the engineering study of lunar soil is very much essential. So as some of you may aware about the recent missions, especially the Chandrayaan-2 mission. And basically, we want to build a rover system. And this rover consists of several wheels. And the wheels will be decided with respect to the weight of this rover. And as well, how these wheels are going to have an interaction with respect to the rheolith, your lunar bed. So based on these categories, these aspects, our lunar vehicle, rover wheel needs to be designed. So typically you can see in the right hand side, this is Apollo rover mission. So the primary aspect is we need to know about the interaction between wheel and soil. There are two things with respect to the interaction study. Whether our wheel is a rigid wheel or flexible wheel. So this is typically what we have in the terrestrial transportation system in our Earth. So basically, we will be building a good surface pavement system. And this pavement system will be decided based on the soil condition, what you have in the Earth and where you are doing the project. So you can do a systematic study on the soil subsurface, subgrade soil. And depending upon the subgrade soil characteristics, you can able to make a proper pavement system. Over that, you'll be having your wheel movement. So this is a completely, your wheel is moving on relatively on rigid surface, and the whole resistance is governed by the frictional resistance between wheel and your subgrade pavement system. So the problem is very simple. And since we are talking about the pavement construction, we know the so-called well-established theory. Using that theory, you can able to construct a proper pavement, and you can able to study the wheel-soil interactions so easy. Whereas the scenario when you talk about the moon surface, especially in the highland region, it says that it's a very material is very soft in nature. The relative density of the material is somewhere close to 60 to 65. And moreover, this material consists of having a density somewhere 15 to 16 kilonewton per meter cube. So that is the material we are talking at the surface. So when we have a wheel on that particular surface, how much the wheel will have its own sinkage, settlement. So the wheel mobility is completely governed by not only the frictional resistance between the soil and wheel, it is also a function of the shearing surface resistance. The rolling is controlled, completely governed by the soft surface response, the behavior. So now your surface is something like a flexible medium where your wheel is more or less taken as a rigid medium. So when you have a flexible system, supporting system and rigid wheel, so the interaction is a little bit tricky. And moreover, this wheel is subjected to a motion, and this motion is normally decided by the rover design. Normally it will be taken as 1 meter per second, or depending upon the rover velocity. So with respect to that movement, what will be the governing forces that is going to affect the wheel movement? And that is the important aspect we have to keep in our mind. Accordingly, we need to work on the soil-wheel interaction. So the wheel mobility, when you talk about a rigid wheel and rigid terrain, it's mainly governed by the frictional force. It's very easy. We know how to maintain this interaction between the wheel and soil. Whereas in a rigid wheel and soft soil like a lunar terrain, it is controlled by the limited slip. It's not only the friction, it is also controlled by the slip forces. And this is the predominant one. So we need to know about, with respect to the self-weight of the rover, how much will each wheel will have a sinkage on the soft soil. And accordingly, the wheel slip needs to be all right. So basically that is called the trackability behavior of the wheel. It's very, very important. So the wheel slip is a function of several aspects. So wheel load, wheel dimensions, flexibility of wheel, and the presence of cruises on the system. And the soil property. In the present study, we are focusing on the soil properties, especially the sinking potential, and what will be the dynamic characteristics that will also govern with respect to the wheel soil interaction. Primarily, we have not concentrated more on the wheel soil interaction and the dynamic characteristics. But this particular study, we have started the preliminary work, and we got a simulant, and using that simulant, we have arrived at all the geotechnical properties, including limited dynamic characteristics. And how these dynamic characteristics are going to affect the real soil interaction, that particular part has not been going to be discussed here, but we'll be concentrating more on how these moonquake are going to have an impact on the constructed facilities, assuming that we are going to create a shelter, we are going to have our own landers and rover. So how this system is going to have an impact when we have a moonquake. That is what this study is going to explain. So the performance parameter, especially it's decided with the wheel soil interaction based on these 4 important aspects. So one is the sinkage, how the wheel is going to settle on the soft lunar terrain, and how much the settlement. With respect to the settlement, we need to design what will be the torque we need to apply the wheel to move on that particular surface. And the slip, the limited climbing capacity and shearing radius needs to be decided with respect to the slip which is created between the soil and wheel. And tower ball pull, this is a very, very important, reveals the maximum resistance that can be overcome by the wheel, such a way that the wheel movement will be progressed further. And the drive torque is completely decided by the motor specification requirements, all with respect to the wheel soil interactions. So since the lunar soil is primarily influencing factor of the lunar mobility, it is very essential to assess the geotechnical properties of the lunar soil for the design of lunar rovers and landers. So in the primary objective, so we have done a study related with the geotechnical characteristics of the lunar soil. So both the bearing as well as the traction capacity of the soil depends on the shear characteristics of the soil. The shear strength parameter of the soil depends on the angle of internal friction, cohesion, and the shear deformation modulus. The bearing capacity with respect to the trackability depends on the settlement due to the soil, compaction on the vehicle weight, and the sinkage parameters of the soil are influenced by cohesive modulus of deformation, friction modulus of deformation, and the sinkage exponent. So however, the bearing capacity is more predominantly governed by the settlement that occurs as a result of the shear failure. So with this background, we intend to characterize this material, the developed lunar soil material, with basically we concentrated on these properties, especially the cohesive modulus of deformation, friction modulus of deformation, sinkage exponent, cohesion stress and friction angle, shear deformation modulus, wheel sinkage ratio, and the wheel soil coefficient. So these are the important aspects as far as considering the test, what we have conducted. So from the direct plate load test, these parameters can be able to obtain. And from the direct shear test, we can able to get these parameters. And the wheel soil interaction study, we can able to get all other remaining parameters. So coming to the moon surface, it is not nice like our Earth surface where we normally deal with a 3-phase system. We have solid phase, water, and air. Whereas the moon phase is a monophase system, it's a completely only solid phase. The soil is a single grain structure. So the existing theory, what we have considered for the Earth, the so-called soil mechanics, may not be directly applied to the moon surface realization. So the available soil mechanics are not directly implementable for the study of lunar soil with respect to the strength and settlement consideration. So the study focused on total characterization of lunar soil simulant for evaluating the behavior of lunar structure and all possible static and dynamic loads. So we basically followed the terra mechanics principle to obtain these lunar characteristics. So this is the typical lithology of this material, lunar material. So you can see up to the top surface, top 10 meter, it's normally we call it as the rheolithic material. This material is a fine grain and reworkable surface deposit is, as I mentioned, the relative density of this material varies from 60 to 65 or 70 with respect to the places. So it is basically grouped under medium dense category of surface and followed by several subgroups. And our main focus is in this A region. So as far as the lunar rover mobility concerned, our primary focus is the rheolithic material. As well, the foundation also expected to have maximum within this region. So within this depth. So our primary focus is to create a simulant such a way that the simulant characteristics are more or less same as the lunar rheolithic material. That is what we extended. So we have a limited lunar soil which is brought back from Apollo missions. So almost we have close to 380 kg of return sample, and most of them are available with NASA. So NASA has given a clear guidelines with respect to the simulant. So the simulant properties have been developed by NASA based on the Apollo missions return sample. So our primary focus is we want to map a material such a way that the material mineralogical composition, chemical composition, and the mechanical composition as similar as the brought back moon soil. So that is what our primary study. So the soil grain mostly less than 1000 micron, and major percentage is fine grained soil, 20 to 800 microns. So in this particular lunar soil, we can see a predominant amount of fine grained soil less than 75 micron available, but this material is completely inherent material, as we know that there is no water in the moon surface and there is no possibility of having any development of cohesive stress in the material, and the predominant force is frictional force rather than the cohesive force, even though the particle size is less. So basically we call it as it's a non-plastic material, though the material significantly consists of less than 75 micron sizes. So Apollo 16 core samples is currently baseline reference for the highland region. So accordingly, we decided to develop the lunar soil corresponding to Apollo 16 mission return sample. So basically the highland consists of anorthosite rock bed minerals. So our primary focus is towards that. So these are the properties given by NASA related to Apollo 16 mission. And our primary idea is to map these characteristics with respect to the developed simulant. So the one aspect is we want to map the material flows to the lunar rheolithic condition. And the second important aspect is how this material is going to respond with respect to the actual lunar environmental conditions. The lunar environment is completely different. We have a huge temperature variation, minus 150 degree to plus 107 degrees centigrade. Even in the polar region, variation is slightly higher, and the equator, the temperature is much more than what it has been given here. So it is a complete huge temperature difference in the region between the polar and equator, and from day to night. So your material, the material whatever we are going to develop, supposed to withstand that much huge temperature variation with the limited property change. That is a very important aspect. So we want to simulate a simulant such a way that it should serve the huge temperature variation. And the second important aspect is a complete continuous metroidal impact, and creates a lot of radiation effect on the soil material, especially in the rheolithic material, the top 10 meters depth. So lunar materials and structures would optimally resist the dynamic stresses caused by moonquake, and also mechanical impact transferred with the continuous bombardment by the asteroid and meteoroid. And there are no other environmental forces like wind, rain, glaciation, and other as like Earth. And the lunar gravity of 1/6 g contributes towards the self-height of various structures and non-structural members, and the complete condition is vacuum. So these are the challenges we have in the moon. So we need to propose a particular moon structure such a way that the structure needs to overcome all these terms. So beside these environmental forces, we also need to concern with respect to the moonquakes. So it has, NASA has given a lot of research outcome related with the moonquakes, and then and there NASA report has given a lot of evidence related with the occurrence of the moonquakes. So basically the moonquakes have been classified into 4 major groups according to the reported research on moonquake analysis. The lunar rheolith has a deep dry strata for a few meters at the top due to the absence of water and a very fractured rock crust beneath the top rheolith, 10 or 15 meter rheolith. Therefore, the lunar seismic signals have a large degree of wave scattering and a very few attenuations. So as there is the chances of attenuation is very, very less. The generated moonquakes are moving as it's like a ringing of the bell. So whenever moonquake occurs, the attenuation level is so low, or in fact insignificant. So keep on the waves are moving within the surface and creating it's like a bell ringing continuously. So moonquakes happen as the result of releasing of stored energy and the tidal energy. This is what it has been reported by NASA. And the quakes are not as like an earthquake created by tectonic movement. Rather, it is completely due to the tidal energy difference in the surface or inside the moon. So it is not due to the release of tectonic energy. So there are 4 different kinds of moonquakes possible on the surface of the moon that are listed here. So basically the shallow moonquake is happening from 20 to 30 kilometers from the surface. This is the one more concern for us than the deep moonquakes. So basically the shallow moonquake is happening 20 to 30 kilometers below the surface, whereas the deep quakes, moonquakes are about 700 kilometers below the surface, probably caused by the tidal variation. So basically it's called the moon tides. And the vibration from the impact of meteoroids, this is another important aspect. This is as like a local vibration. So since the moon is subjected to a lot of meteoroidal impact, so it's the meteoroidal impact, probably those who have already seen the moon surface, you might have seen a lot of craters. These craters have been created because of this continuous meteoroidal impact. Some of the craters are several kilometers in radius. So this creates and time-bound vibrations. So these vibrations will also be a cause concern for us when we have a structure which is very close to this kind of meteoroid impact. And another important aspect is the thermal quakes caused by the expansion of the previous crust and the first illuminated by the morning sun after 2 weeks of the deep freeze. So huge thermal change, temperature variation is also creating thermal quakes. So these are the 4 important aspects. And as far as the lunar structure concerned, shallow moonquake and the impact of meteoroidal and thermal quakes are very, very important. So we need to have our rheolith. We need to protect our structure against these kind of moonquakes. So deep moonquakes happens with respect to the tidal periodicity once in a month or 7.5 months. So depending upon this periodicity. And the shallow moonquakes are the most energetic seismic event compared to the deep moonquakes and release more energy. So the release of seismic energy from moon is commonly assumed to be small. It is in the range of 10 joule per year. So compared to the Earth, 10 power 17 and 10 power 18. And the average seismic energy somewhere is 10 power 14. It is almost like a 1/8 to 1/10 of the earthquake energies. So the third type of moonquake is impact, which occurred regularly due to the impact of meteoroid. So Apollo seismometers in the Apollo mission 12, 13, 14, and 16, 17, continuously Apollo missions have installed seismometers in the moon surface. And continuously these seismic events have been measured, monitored by the Apollo missions. And based on that data, and they have reported that recorded almost 13,000 moonquakes, deep quakes, shallow quakes, and the combination of all these things. And normally this, according to the Richter scale, what we follow, the measurement magnitude of moonquake was less than 3 and mostly less than 1. So occurrence of 3 magnitude moonquakes are very less, but the most common type of occurrence of moonquakes are close to Richter scale 1. So such a low energy moonquakes. So the moonquake vibration dies out within up to 1 minute. The maximum observed period is not more than 2 minutes. Therefore, the dynamic response of the moon and earth would not be similar to each other. Hence, we need to deal this separately and we need to develop a theory for this moonquake. So some of the literature outcomes shows that the occurrence of moonquake, you can see very rare as reached to the 3+ magnitude, and the occurrence is, this is a shallow moonquake, and frequencies, most frequent occurrence moonquakes are having 1.
So Muthukumaran, just a reminder, try to finish about 5-minute time, huh? So you can practice. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. So this is just a comparison about the deep and shallow moonquakes with respect to, you can see the right side, you have the shallow quake. This is the one having more impact on the surface. And if at all we have any structure on the surface, we'll be in trouble. We need to really considered this aspect. And so this is the occurrence of the deep quake with respect to various time frame. So considering all these aspects, the primary focus is we need to develop a simulant, and then we need to study on the simulant with respect to all these characteristics what we discussed so far. So the development of new lunar highland soil simulant, what we did. So basically we have taken Apollo 16 as a reference, and basically we want to do the complete study for the Chandrayaan 2 and 3, and the Chandrayaan 3 mission project is going on. And basically we need about 50 tons of LSS for doing all this rover and lander study in the laboratory, ISRO laboratory. So for that, we did a systematic analysis. We identified the material, which is near Salem, Tamil Nadu. The place is called Chittambutti, where we have plenty of anorthosite rock specimen. With this anorthosite rock consists of the chemical and mineralogical composition as like the lunar rhyolith. So we have taken, this is just a comparison with respect to the chemical composition. And based on that, we have taken the anorthosite rock, and that has been characterized. Basically, it is pulverized and made it in different categories. We have grouped into sample A to E with the various grain size, 30 to 1000 micron. This is the predominant group in the lunar soil. And accordingly, we mixed this proportion into different categories, ratio, and we arrived at a suitable ratio with respect to the one which is very close to the Apollo 16. This is the upper and lower limit of the Apollo 16 sample according to the gradation. So all our specimen ASS 1 to 6 is very close to this region. So we have selected the one ASS M2, which is denoted in the dotted line, which is very much closer according to the gradation as well the other properties. So the test has been extended with all other engineering characteristics, starting from the direct shear test and compaction test, consolidation test, and triaxial test. And basically we want to obtain the potential. The very important aspect is constructing the singage exponent. So basically what will be the sinking capacity of the material. So that we have simulated in the laboratory conducting simple plate load test. And the very important aspect is the wheel will be decided, the rover wheel will be decided based on the singage exponent. Basically the singage component, especially the cohesive modulus of deformation and the friction modulus of deformation. And for that, we have taken different aspect ratio of the plate, keeping the length as 180 millimeter as a constant, varying the width from 72 to 180, such a way that we maintain from 1 to 2 aspect ratio. That aspect ratio is basically the one going to decide about the slip as well as the friction of the wheel. And based on that, we have evaluated both the cohesive modulus and the friction modulus. And this is the developed material. And using that, all other properties have been obtained using all the mixes ASSM 1 to 6. And finally, ASSM 2 has been decided as the one which is having a material properties very close to the Apollo 16, and that has been decided as the ISAC 1. And in fact, this ISAC, LSS ISAC 1 has been patented by Indian Patent ISRO. And this material has further extended with the study in the actual lunar bed created by ISRO laboratory, both considering the rover study. So rover study has simulated by considering 1/6 the G condition by using a helium balloon, and neon lamps have been used to create the temperature effect. And in fact, the vacuum condition has not been created. So completely, the developed material has been extended for further study in the laboratory and applications. And coming to the dynamic characteristics, we have basically used the cyclic triaxial apparatus and Bender element method to estimate the dynamic characteristics of this material. So basically using cyclic triaxial apparatus for various confining pressure, we calculate the shear deformation modulus and damping ratio. And using Bender element, we got the maximum shear modulus of the soil. So we have considered with various frequency from low to high, 0.5 to 2 Hertz with the various confining pressure, 50 to 200 kilopascal. So considering from top surface to 3 to 5 meter depth where our point of interest with respect to the foundation. So that is what we did. And this is the complete historical loop of this cyclic triaxial apparatus study for the frequency of 1.4 Hz to confining pressure of 100 PA. And just we have from this, we have calculated the damping ratio using the standard relation and using the E and G mu as estimated. From the Bender element, we have calculated the maximum shear modulus. And this is the complete outcome of this result for various confining pressure with the frequency for a particular value of the shear modulus, and the Bender element result for maximum shear modulus for the density corresponding to 65 as in the lunar reality. So with that, this is, as I mentioned in the beginning, this study is still we are doing on it. So still, I'm in research in progress. So we thought of extending this particular study to the lunar structure, and we have done a different lunar structure analysis. The proposed type of structure, we started with the igloo kind of structure and egg shape and a segmental shell dome. So all this basically, it's a vacuum condition. We want to create the living comfort for the astronaut. So we need to pressurize the inner chamber close to 100 kilonewton per meter square atmospheric pressure. When you introduce that 100 kilonewton per meter square atmospheric pressure in the chamber, so that will create the uplift pressure for the structure. So then the primary focus is we want to create the foundation structure with respect to the uplift pressure. So that is what presently we are doing on the research. So preliminary research, we witnessed that providing a stiff wrap foundation system with the anchor plate will have enough resistance against the uplift pressure. That is what. So we are also extending this study to create a 3D printing with the igloo structure to simulate the real. We want to check the real condition with respect to the uplift pressure. That is what we are extending. So coming to the conclusion, a lunar soil simulant was jointly developed by Indian Space Research Organization India and large quantities for the further extensive research work. The geotechnical properties of LSS ISAC-1 were verified with respect to the Apollo 16 mission. The dynamic characteristics of the lunar soil is very much required for the lunar structure, would be built on the lunar surface. The dynamic response of the lunar structure would be assessed based on the dynamic properties of the lunar soil, such as the shear modulus and damping ratio. So the cyclic triaxial test was performed effectively to simulate the moonquake conditions in the laboratory level. So the dynamic properties were assessed based on the moonquake conditions in terms of different frequencies and confining pressure. The dynamic properties of the LSS ISAC-1 would hopefully be very useful for the further research work for moon colonization aspect. So with that, I'm just closing my talk. I would like to acknowledge for this work. It is basically a research project funded by ISRO, Respond Scheme, project number 426. This is the topic of the project. I thank Dr. P. Kunjikrishna, Director, URC ISRO, and M. Annadurai, former Director, ISAC, and Mr. Venugopal, Group Head, ISAC, and these are the members who have done this particular project in laboratory. I also extend my thanks to Professor Anbalagan. He was the one instrumental in identifying the material, ionized rock material in Salem. So with that, I'll close my talk. So future moon colonization, we have a structure like this in the moon, maybe after a couple of decades. Thank you all.
So thank you very much, Professor Muthukumaran. Now we have about 8 to 10 minutes of time of discussion. So if anybody has a question right now, he's welcome to ask. Meanwhile, I have some 2-3 questions from my side. First of all, very nice presentation, Professor Muthukumaran. I mean, to test something regarding to soil and moon is always something very, very rare. Huh? So it's not an easy task. Huh? So my first question is, you mentioned that 382 kg of material was brought by the Apollo mission from moon to the Earth. You have an opportunity to test any of the material yourself, or basically all the properties have been taken from the information given by the Apollo experts only?
Yeah, thank you. In fact, we had an opportunity to get the actual lunar soil. We got close to 500 grams. half
500
kg we
gram.
got from, ISRO has supplied 500 grams of sample. We could do only the gradation. Using that material, we did the gradation. But after mapping that, we handed over the material to ISRO. So yeah, in fact, we physically touched the material.
You physically didn't touch the material, because
yes.
that was what I was about to know, how the soil on the moon looks like in terms of color, mass, density, and how it is being
the
different
material
from our material on the Earth.
Yeah, the material is something like it's like a ash. The color is like a ashy color, but it's a very fine material. But the density is more. So that is the same fineness.
Density. So one is density, other is unit weight.
Yeah.
Unit weight, I will not talk about, because G there is 1/6 of G, what is available on the Earth.
Yes.
What is the typical mass density of the material in the upper region of the moon surface?
Yeah, that is what typically it says that close to 15 to 16 kilonewton per meter cube. So
see, again, you are talking about kilonewton per cubic meter.
Yeah,
I'm not interested. I'm talking about kg per cubic meter, if you don't mind. I'm talking about mass density only.
Yeah, that is the problem. I mean, the tested sample are reported in terms of the density, because it has been in the terrestrial condition. All properties have been tested in the terrestrial Earth condition. With that, we are able to simulate. But NASA has done, actually, it's a reduced, they wanted to really conduct the test under reduced G, 1/6 G, test under the flight mode in the motion. While coming in the parabolic motions, they reduced the G. Reported that the result is not significantly changed as far as the geotechnical parameters concerned. So slight variation about 10 to 15%. It is not a drastic change in the parameter. So most of these studies, whether it is reported by NASA or elsewhere in the world, all it's, I mean, the tests have been conducted under the terrestrial condition, the normal G condition.
Anyone has a test right now, something like a plate load test on the moon surface? I doubt right now.
I'm not very sure, but I mean, NASA is working extensively, and Korean people also working extensively. Japanese working, and probably we may get some details later, because everybody is focusing on moon. So definitely we may have some sort of research outcome with all the environmental conditions.
Somewhere in the presentation, somewhere in the presentation you mentioned, if I'm correct, tidal waves.
Yeah.
I believe on the moon there is no such ocean or sea. There is no as such free water.
Yes, exactly.
What tidal wave you mean to say? I didn't understand actually.
Yeah,
you are talking about the moon quakes.
Yes, it's a moon quake.
And you said the source is perhaps the tidal waves also. I did not understand the meaning of it.
Yes, yes. It is, I mean, the research, it says that the attraction between moon and Earth. So this is basically the attraction between moon and Earth. So that, with respect to the motion, creates the energy difference in the surface as well as inside the moon. So that is the creates the waves. That is called, they call it as a tidal waves. It is not as like the ocean wave, tidal wave.
Okay.
Only the energy difference between the surface and inner with respect to the Earth attraction, between the moon and Earth attraction.
Yeah. One last question from my side. I'm sure there should be few from the participants also.
Please.
I believe there is no atmosphere on the moon surface. Am I right?
Yes, yes.
If somebody wants to stay in moon, all the time he needs to have oxygen with him, or you can produce oxygen from within the moon itself. Yeah,
that is a tricky part. Actually, if that shelter we want to create, it is we have suggested igloo kind of shelter, or the shelter something like a egg shape, using the rheolic material itself.
No, my question is
Yeah, I'll come to your
oxygen
question.
point.
Yeah, I'll come to your questions. So we
Yeah.
need to create a living comfort for the astronaut. So we need we need to maintain the atmospheric pressure of 100 kPa. So I mean, as of now, probably some of you might be aware that using our Chandrayaan-1 satellite image has identified probably moon polar may have a crystallized form of water.
Yeah.
Probably those things can be. That is why we are more.
But there is no atmosphere there. No, there is no oxygen.
No oxygen.
Yeah, no oxygen.
No oxygen.
Yeah. So we need to have the source with us only.
Yes. I mean, as of now, I mean, it is not 100% completely. We have evidence for that.
Yeah.
So broadly reported, we may have a crystallized water in the.
Fine.
That is why we are concentrating more on the polar. So possibly if you get some sort of evidence that we can have extraction techniques to get the oxygen from the polar.
Yeah, so thank you. So any questions from my colleague or participant here? I'm sure there will be few.
Muthukumaran sir, I have one.
Please, sir. Please.
I'm Dinesh here.
Yeah, please.
Did somebody tried with centrifuge testing for the effect of gravity?
You can accelerate.
Okay.
But the problem is we want to
reduce.
So NASA has tried with under the motion condition. In the parabolic motion, they did some sort of study, but it's not completely revealed. They have not disclosed.
Maybe some simulation studies are also not carried out regarding the effect of this lower gravity and how its behavior, because the weight will come, unit weight will come down.
Yes. People are trying, people are working, but from this NASA flight study, it has reported, but is not completely revealed as I mentioned. It says that about you have a difference of 10 to 20%, 10 to 15% or 20% parameters. So in fact, we normally consider such kind of low impact is insignificant on our parameters, some of our parameters. So probably in future, NASA has already developed a laboratory considering all these moon environmental conditions. So hopefully we may get some sort of result in the future.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, Professor Muthukumaran sir, this is Rajiv.
Yeah,
how are you,
please,
sir?
Yeah, please.
This is really thank you to the chair and the session manager. This is an opportunity for us. Actually, I don't have a specific question to you right now. Really, it is a great experience for me, for us, and 7th ICRA ji has given a chance to learn or get the information about moon staying in the earth. Really, it's a very pleasure and very informative to us, I believe. The thing is that you spoke about that minus 150 degrees centigrade to 107 degrees centigrade of temperature difference.
Yes.
So it's a huge, I think. Now the material which what I understood, which you are trying to simulate in the earth, I don't know how to understand the behavior of such a material with such a difference of temperature. So what is your opinion, just to know?
Yeah. In fact, in the last 4th quake is based on the huge temperature variation. Yeah. It is due to the temperature variation, we may have such kind of quakes, radiation. As you rightly pointed out, and some of the countries are working with a huge temperature difference, but there is another added advantage having such a huge temperature, especially for the plus temperature. We want to have a shelter. The shelter can be constructed by using the rheolith material itself, by using sintering process. By using a suitable techniques, we can able to increase the temperature as easily as possible. So that will melt the material and make the material is monolithic. So that is another study is going on, how to make the binder, how to make, how to bind the material to create the shelter. But in the terrestrial condition, I mean, since the lunar soil condition is more on like a inherent material, and probably this temperature could be withstandable by the material itself. I mean, the plus 152, minus 152 plus 170. Still, we need to do a lot of research on that, the temperature. But according to our the developed LSS ISAC 1, so basically we have taken material from anorthosite rock, which is more as like an inherent material, which can able to sustain this temperature easily. That is what our preliminary study has witnessed. We are also planning to do sintering process to make binders on the lunar surface. So that process is going on. So shortly we will also come with this sintering process to make a binding of lunar rheolith. Thank you.
Definitely, we'll wait to hear you a number of lectures in this regard. People will be more interested over the earth to hear you soon. And lastly, just as Professor Kumar has already asked you about the mass density and the unit weight, and you have shown some of the tests, if I'm not wrong, vertical sinkage test.
Yeah.
Now, doing the same test in the moon and to simulate in the earth, obviously there should be a difference because the behavior of the soil, whatever you mentioned, and the activation of the G gravitational force is a significant difference. So how do you correlate the test results, as you are mentioning the sinkage is one of the important property? So just to hear from you.
Yeah. So basically, Apollo 16 return sample test evaluated by NASA is in the terrestrial condition. So based on that, they have given a broad guidelines. And as you rightly said, definitely there will be an impact on the G effect. But what I mentioned in the beginning as well, NASA was trying to do this test under reduced G condition, under the flight mode condition. So that is what they have also reported on the parameter, on limited parameters. The impact is not as significant as what we are expecting due to the G reduction. So basically, the G reduction is not only for the soil, the G reduction is also applicable for our lander as well as rover. So basically, we are dealing with the same G level, whether it's the supporting material or inducing material. So both are reduced with the G. So probably whatever the theory we are extending in the terrestrial condition, applicable to the considering the same G level.
Yeah, probably. So, yeah, sir.
Now I think we are running out of time.
Sure.
So thank you very much. I think if we have some more question, I'm very sure we can interact later on with Professor Muthukumaran. Once again, thank you very much, Professor Muthukumaran, for a very, very nice on a topic which is a little different.
Thank you so much.
Topic, So thank you very much.
Thank you
very much. Yeah, thank you very much. So I will request now the next speaker. So next speaker, I think B.R. Madhusudan, perhaps he's not going to make a presentation. Professor Dinesh, if I'm correct.
Yes, he is not there.
Okay, so next presentation is by Neetu M. Am I right? Cochin University of Science and Technology, Kochi.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Neetu M, Cochin University.
Neetu M. So I request Neetu M to please share the presentation slides.
Okay, good morning all. My topic is laboratory investigation on wave characteristics due to hammer impact on different types of soil. Okay, as we all know that pile foundation is very important nowadays, and the surface soil is fragile. We cannot go for shallow foundation, and pile foundation is very much suitable. But direct mud circulation, that is DMC, method of piling create stress waves, and these waves may cause problems to the nearby structures. So it is very important to study the wave characteristics, and it is very important to control the vibrations prior to construction. Okay, let me go through the introduction. The propagation characteristic of vibration generated by the various vibration sources may depend on the type of the generated waves, which can be assessed by measuring particle motions. So in this study, I actually find out the particle motions in terms of acceleration. Then finally, using that acceleration, I just find out velocity and displacement, and how this particle motion and relative soil's relative density, types of soil are related. Actually, I find out these things. To effectively control the vibration related problems, the investigation of propagation and attenuation characteristics are required. Impact loads result in shock waves propagating through the elements with possible serious consequence. So it's very important to find out the characteristics of waves prior to construction. Then, when a wave moves through a medium, only energy is transported and no any other material. When load is suddenly applied to a body, the all body is not disturbed at the instant of loading. The part of closest to the source of disturbance are affected first, and the deformation produced by the disturbance are subsequently spread throughout the body in the form of stress waves. Then these generated waves can be assessed by measuring particle motions, that is acceleration. Then vibration amplitude is reduced during their propagation through ground because of geometrical and material damping. To effectively control the vibration related problems, investigation of propagation and attenuation characteristics are required. The importance of the study is, it's important to accurately predict the magnitude of ground vibration that result during construction activities in the site. As today construction works are often located in urban areas, and along with society's increasing concern of environmental impact, the need of vibration prediction prior to construction is immediate interest. And reduction of vibration is very important. So study for attenuation of vibration requires special attention. Then to increase the knowledge and understanding in the field of ground vibration due to impact loading, and to fabricate a test setup for conducting impact load test in laboratory. To conduct laboratory model study to investigate the vibration propagation characteristic of different types of soils using an impact hammer. To study the peak particle velocity and acceleration due to change in hammer energy, relative density, type of soil, and distance from source. Then finally, the main objective to evaluate the soil dependent parameters and develop an equation to predict the vibration. Scopus gives an idea about disturbance in surrounding soil due to impact loading. A better understanding about variation of peak vertical acceleration from distance of impact is attained, helps to identify relative soil moment prior to construction and soil dependent constants. Then for my study, actually, to study the wave propagation characteristics of different types of soil, actually I have used 3 types of soil, that is silty sand, river sand, and lateritic red soil, in order to found what will happen or what are the different wave characteristics in while changing the type of soil. And these soil were collected from various parts in Kochi itself. Then next is impact energy, relative density, that is relative density while changing relative density, that is 30 and 60% is relative density. Then impact hammer energy. I have used a 10 kg load and its height of fall varying for creating different impact energy, and energy is varied with a minimum energy of 50 joule and maximum energy of 170 joule. Distance of measurement from source of impact is 0.25 meter and 0.45 meter from the point of impact. The material used, the soil sample used are silty sand, red soil, and river sand. The basic properties were found out, and it is listed in this table. Okay, this is the test setup, and I have used a steel tank of length 1.2 meter and width 0.7 meter and height 0.9 meter, and stiffeners provided on the side of tank to prevent bulging of sides during the experiment. Impact load applied using this hammer, and which is mounted on a pulley and is properly guided using MS pipe for concentric loading. This is the setup. This is the entire setup. Accelerators connected here, and this finally to system. I used ADXL 335 for measuring acceleration. It is a small, thin, low power complete 3-axis accelerometer with signal conditioned voltage outputs. And various studies says that it gives satisfactory readings. And for programming, Arduino Uno were used. Seismo signal for finding velocity. Okay. This is all about ADX axle. It's a brief description about ADXL 335 accelerometer. And its acceleration we can find in a range of plus or minus 3g in x and y, x, y, and z axis. This is the working of an ADXL 335 accelerometer. Okay, it's a phase sensitive demodulation technique is used for finding acceleration. Arduino board used for. Okay, then the test procedure is vertical impact tests were conducted to simulate different impact energy. Okay, a falling mass of 10 kg is used and different dropping height, that is 0.5 meter, 1 meter, for creating different hammer energy. The energy varied from 50 joule, that is mgh, 10 into g into 0.5. And the response of the soil during impact was measured by 2 accelerometers, which were connected with the Arduino and which in turn connected with the laptop. Okay. Study was conducted for finding wave characteristic of varying relative density of soil, type of soil, distance from source, hammer energy. 2 accelerometers were used, that is one is at a distance of 0.25 meter from the source of impact and 0.45 meter from the source of impact. And the software Seismo Signal version 4.3 is used for extract the values of velocity and displacement from the acceleration value. This is the test setup. Okay. Test conducts are: one is by varying type of soil, river sand, red earth, and silty sand. Then related by varying relative density, that is 30% and 60% density. Then distance from source of impact, 0.25 meter and 0.45 meter energy by varying height of fall. And result obtained for red soil is A1 is acceleration, that is acceleration value obtained at a distance of 0.25 meter, and V1 corresponding velocity, and S1 is corresponding displacement.
Neetu, sorry to interfere you about 3 minutes time, huh? Try to finish little fast, huh? Yeah, thank you very much. Huh? Sorry to interfere.
Okay, sir, okay. This is the test result for red soil. And from this, it is clear that it's a graph connecting with the acceleration and energy, as red line corresponding to 0.25 meter from source. It is clear that as distance from source of impact increases, acceleration decreases. This is the test results corresponding to river sand. Then river sand in 60% relative density and 30% relative density. And while comparing the results, that is acceleration and energy, The graph should be like this. As distance from source of impact increases, acceleration decreases. This is the graph connecting with impact energy and acceleration with respect to relative density. From graph, it is clear that as relative density increases, acceleration also increases. Relative density and acceleration is directly related. This is the graph. And for silty sand, 60% is density, and same sand for 30% is relative density. Okay. While comparing all the three types of soil, it is observed that a peak acceleration is higher for lateritic soil compared to river sand and silty sand. Okay. Finally, from these values, from the acceleration peak vertical velocity values, we can obtain soil constant according to WIS 1981. V is equal to K into D by root of En all raised to minus n. And from that soil constants obtained, the value is for lateritic soil 0.11 and then 1.44. The values okay. Concluding, the laboratory model studies were conducted by fabricating model to investigate the wave propagation characteristic and attenuation of waves in different types of soil using an impact hammer. The effect of vibration by varying different parameters, that is type of soil, relative density, drop height, and distance from source was studied. The acceleration induced in the soil was measured using ADXL 335 accelerometers and data acquisition system placed at different positions. Peak particle velocity and displacement were also found out from the acceleration values with the help of SeismoSignal software. The test setup developed in the laboratory can reasonably predict the wave propagation and attenuation in soil. The peak vertical acceleration observed at 0.25 meter from source is more than that of peak vertical acceleration value observed at 0.45 meter. This is due to attenuation of waves due to increasing distance from the source. Relative density of soil influences wave propagation. PVA recorded shows an increasing trend as the relative density increases. And peak vertical acceleration recorded in all conditions increases as hammer energy increases. Red earth gives highest value for peak vertical acceleration and peak particle velocity compared to river sand and silty sand. This may be due to cohesion and more interparticle attractions. Soil-dependent constant for 3 soils was obtained and are found to be in agreement with those existing in literature. And these are my references. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Neetu, for a very nice presentation. So we have about 4 to 5 minutes of time for discussion. So it's open for discussion now. If anyone has any question, he or she is. Meanwhile, I'll ask 1 or 2 questions from Neetu. Neetu, you have dropped a weight from a given height. As I understand, I think you varied the height of fall from 0.5 meter to about 1.75 meter, if I'm correct. Huh?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Because you mentioned the level of energy is 50 joule to about 175 joule.
Yes.
Now, this particular weight, it is dropped directly on the soil, or you are using some kind of base plate where this weight is dropped?
There is a pulley arrangement, sir.
No, pulley is there to lift the weight. When the weight is dropped over the soil mass,
okay.
Is the weight dropped directly on the surface of the soil, or you have kept a base plate?
Directly on the soil, sir.
Directly on the soil. Where did you have your sensor actually? You have buried within the soil, or the sensor is placed, the accelerometer is placed on the surface of the ground?
Accelerometer is placed on the surface of the soil itself.
Surface of the soil. So basically you are capturing the vertical acceleration, if I'm correct.
Yes, sir.
How many sensors you have actually? You have only one sensor, you have more than one sensor? How many accelerometers you have?
I have used 2 sensors, sir.
you have used two sensor. If you use two sensor, what you can think of doing is, if you know the time lag between the two sensor, you can easily think of computing what is going to be the wave velocity. Do you make any attempt to determine the wave velocity which is propagating through the medium?
From the acceleration value, I have used Seismo Signal software for extract the velocity value.
See, what
Not
I'm telling
directly
you
measured.
is, if you are having two sensors, na,
Yes, sir.
once its wave is propagating through the two sensors, we can think of determining what is the time lag. And if I know the distance between the two sensor, I can think of determining what is going to be the surface wave velocity.
Okay,
By
sir.
using the data acquisition system, did you make any attempt in that direction?
No, sir. No, sir.
Okay, you have not made any attempt. Okay, any comment about how the height of fall is changing the damping of what you are measuring? Any attempt to measure the damping value? If you are knowing the accelerometer signal, if I know the decay curve, I can think of even computing the damping value, also material damping I'm talking about. Any attempt to determine the damping of the material?
Actually, I neglect the damping value there.
You neglected the damping value,
sir.
huh? Okay, okay. So damping has been ignored. Okay, okay. Yeah, so this wave velocity, what you are talking about, which velocity of the wave you are talking about? Are you talking about the P wave velocity, or you are talking about the shear wave velocity, or the Rayleigh wave?
This is about shear wave velocity.
How do you know it's a shear wave actually?
Sir, actually,
So you understand the difference between the P wave and the shear wave, nah? Because the shear wave will be reaching later at the signal. The first signal, what you will get is on account of P wave arrival. You can think about it, huh? You can think about it, huh? Any question from my colleague here in the audience?
Sir,
Yeah, please, Dr. Rajiv.
Yeah, Neetu, already sir has given you a very good idea about the broad scope of the work, futuristic work. I will not ask you any further question. Just can you just brief intro about yourself to know?
Okay, sir. So
yeah, we can hear you. Brief intro about your work, where you are working, about this.
Yes, so I'm Neetu, currently working at Pollution Control Board, Calicut, as AE, and I had my MTech on Cochin University of Science and Technology, and this paper is actually is part of my thesis work, MTech project.
Fine, that's fine. Thank you from my side, sir.
Any other questions from my other colleague here in the participants? Any question? So thank you, Neetu. Thank you for your nice lecture. Will get benefited from your lecture, and I hope you will also get benefited. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Sir, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Sir.
So now I request Dr. Saha to take care of the remaining two presentations.
Okay,
yeah,
sir.
Please.
Okay, sir. My pleasure.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah,
thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you. So the next presenter, as per the schedule, it is coming dynamic soil properties of enzymatic cement stabilized clay by, okay, that part has not come, by Gitu Thomas, National University of Technology, Calicut. So now I am welcoming Gitu Thomas to take over the platform for sharing lecture.
Okay, good afternoon all. Myself Gitu Thomas, research scholar in NIT Calicut. I'm under the guidance of Dr. Kodi Rangaswamy, Civil Engineering Department. The paper title is Dynamic Soil Behavior of Enzymatic Cement Stabilized Clay. The why I am presenting this paper is to encourage all of you who are working in ground improvement field or in soil dynamic field, to encourage all to use non-traditional additive which are eco-friendly and safe for the environment, for the ground environment. The contents of the presentation: introduction, relevance of the topic, experimental methodology, result and discussion, conclusions, and reference. Coming to introduction, we all know that the main problem in dealing with the soil response analysis, ground response analysis, is the complex behavior of soil. Depending upon the soil properties, the ground response get amplified, seismic motion get amplified or de-amplified while the seismic wave is traveling from the bedrock to the ground surface. So a precise evaluation of ground soil properties are very essential in order to reduce the consequences during a seismic activity. For a dynamic response, for the evaluation of dynamic soil properties, main parameters are considering are shear modulus, damping ratio, and Poisson's ratio. We all know that soft clay is very much prone to lateral deformations and high compressible nature. So it is very necessary to evaluate the behavior of soft clay under dynamic load conditions. They are prone to stiffness degradation even under static loading. An amplified ground motion can be expected in high plastic clays under seismic loading. So the present work is aiming at reducing the ground amplification in the presence of soft clay in a site by adding non-traditional additive. The present study uses a bioenzyme which is originated from a vegetable extract and use of traditional additive cement in a small percentage only. The relevance of the present work is aiming at introducing a new combination of bioenzyme along with a small percentage of cement to improve the dynamic soil properties of the soil. For the present study, the soil samples were collected from a site in Ernakulam, which is considered as a very soils with a poor soil conditions. Sorry, site with a poor soil condition, but the constructions are the properties of the soil collected from the site are listed in this table. Specific gravity is 2.5. According to the soil classification, the soil is classified as CH, that means highly compressible clay, which needs to be improved before any of the construction activities. The additive used in the present studies are cement and terrazine. Terrazine has a natural origin, which is extracted from the vegetable waste. The additive dosages used in the present study is 1% cement in order to reduce the use of traditional additive, and the optimum dosage of terrazine is found out from the unconfined compressive strength test as well as consistency limits test. And from the evaluation of unconfined compressive strength result, we have obtained that the terrazine dosage 2, that means 220 ml per 2 meter cube of soil gives the best result. That means almost 4.5 times the unconfined compressive strength of untreated soil got increase because of the presence of 1% of cement and the terrazine dosage 2. For finding out the dynamic soil properties of the soil, cyclic triaxial tests were conducted in the laboratory. Initially, the samples were prepared in order to obtain the uniform mixture before and after the treatment. The samples were prepared in a slurry form and preloading were applied for 1 month of period until the volume changes constant, settlement is constant. Then saturation is applied until the B value, Skempton pore pressure ratio becomes 0.96 or more. Then consolidation is given until the volume change becomes constant. Then cyclic shearing is applied. The details of cyclic triaxial test for the present study is shown in this table. Strain control test is conducted and 150 kP of effective confining pressure is given. This is a figure showing a typical degradation of shear modulus with an increase in number of cycles. We can see that the stepping down of the hysteresis loop shows the stiffness degradation with the increase in number of cycles. The rate of decrease in stiffness is comparatively lesser in the presence of treatment, and the reduction in stiffness becomes slower in the stabilized phase. That means more energy is getting dissipated after a few number of cycles of loading. Larger area of hysteresis loop means higher energy dissipation. The treatment effect on shear modulus is illustrated in this graph. You can see that the shear modulus got increased significantly in the presence of 1% of cement and terrazine. That means, and also degradation rate of shear modulus is lower in the case of treated soil. That means a better seismic response is expected in the treated soil. And also damping ratio got increased 1.7 times that of untreated soil. That means the stress dissipation and energy absorption is more in the treated soil due to particle densification and pore volume reduction. That means it can the soil can reduce the ground amplification because of the treatment. And also pore pressure response is also studied. You can see the pore pressure ratio were getting reduced because of the presence of treatment. That means the enzymatic cement stabilization is able to capable of reducing pore volume and thereby reducing the pore pressure ratio in the saturated soil during cyclic loading. The reason behind the strength improvement is explained like this. This can be concluded by two words: biocementation and bioclogging. That means in the presence of a bacteria, the cohesive bonding between the soil particles is getting increased. This is called biocementation, and the pore voids were filled with the calcium silicate hydrate gel, which reduces the pore spaces.
Sorry to interrupt you. You have less than 2 minutes. Okay, so
okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. But a surplus gel, that means CS gel produced after the addition of optimum dosage, that will result in a reduction in strength because of the excess gel that cause slippage between the particles of soil. This is the illustration of strength improvement. That means the absorbed water layer thickness is getting reduced because of the addition of enzyme that makes the soil into more friable structure and a less void structure. Conclusion is that the enzymatic cement in the soft soil can be applied effectively in the field, especially in the case of foundation stabilization. That means foundation soil stabilization, which can improve both the static soil properties, and it can behave better in the case of cyclic as well as seismic loading conditions. This will be a good initiative to reduce the use of traditional additives such as cement and fly ash lime, which can cause severe damage to the soil as well as groundwater in the future. So the present work is could be applied in the field for improving the soil properties, mainly in the case of soft clay. Thank you.
Thank you. To be finishing in time, Gitu.
Thank
So
you.
now Nortan is going for question and answer session. So I'm requesting my colleagues and seniors for any question and answer on this topic.
That's a question from Gitu, I think, huh?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. My first question to you is, you see, you are indicating one thing, the shear strength is improving.
Yes, sir.
At the same time, damping ratio is not reducing, it is increasing.
Yes.
I am a little doubtful in accepting it. Usually when the material becomes stiff,
yes,
damping will go down. Would you like to comment about it? You are saying that your stabilized material, your stabilized material by using this Terranzyme is becoming good in the shear strength, but its damping ratio is becoming higher. Usually when the material is stiff, damping should reduce actually.
Sir, that means because of the pore void reduction and the better bonding between the particles, because of the particle rearrangement also, more strain energy is getting absorbed by the soil particles. That might be the reason.
I am not very sure. Usually if you add a cement, if you are going from loose to dense sand will have more shear strength. And if you try to stabilize any material with the cement, shear strength will improve, but the damping ratio usually will become lower. So kindly check on that part, whether you are having any trouble with the measurement. And my second question is, what was this composition of enzyme actually? Chemical composition of this Terazyme, what you mentioned actually.
Yes, sir. That is already mentioned. Main constituents were rhodosulf, and
so this is a waste product of
vegetable extract, sir, from mainly
which vegetables you are talking about?
Because
if somebody wants to use it, sugar.
Mainly sugar cane and other vegetable extract. Actually, that is collected locally available. Actually, that is collected from Tamil Nadu, Chennai, and they have extracted according to their specification.
You somewhere mentioned in your presentation that 220 ml per 2 cubic meter of doses provides a maximum benefit, if I'm correct.
Sir, for my soil, the value is 220 ml per 2 meter cube.
If somebody wants to use it, there is a possibility, the concentration of this waste product may not be the same what you are using it actually.
Yes, but that value might be, it will be in the same range, but some value changes will be there depending upon their own soil. That will be depending upon the soil minerals and all.
Yeah, done from my side, Professor Rajiv.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much
for your valuable questions and discussion. My other colleagues and participants, any question, because we have few time with Gitu for a nice presentation. So,
Neetu, this is Terazyme is commercially available, na?
Yes, sir. Actually, I have collected that from that Avijit Agencies, Chennai. Actually, that is locally. Actually, that is in South India. They are distributing that, and also they are already started. There are many government projects also. They are using this Terazyme for pavement stabilization.
Stabilization they are using here also, but after some cycles, I think it's not found to be effective. This is for your information.
Okay, sir.
There's one question in the Q&A section also, I think, Dr. Rajiv.
Yes, sir. I'm going to address. Yeah, from the question is coming from Shiladitha. So to Gitu, is the bacterial activity as a part of biocementation process visible under the SEM?
Yes, sir. Actually, I have not included that in PPT. Actually, that void becomes smaller with the filling of CSS gel in the soil, and also the texture of clay particles are changing because of the addition of the chemical action. Sorry, microbial.
So have you taken the SEM image? Have you taken the SEM image?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Gitu, for your nice talk and question and answer hour. So because of shortage of time, we have to rush for the next presentation. Thank you for your nice presentation. So the next presenter is just let me see.
Ankit Desai.
Ankit Desai. Yeah, Mr. Ankit, can you come up with your presentation?
Yes, sir.
And please give your little brief intro and you start your presentation.
Okay. So hello everyone. My name is Aniket Desai. I'm currently pursuing PhD at Department of Earthquake Engineering, IIT Roorkee, under the supervision of Dr. Ravi Shankar Jagtap. Very good afternoon to all of you. My topic for today addresses an important issue in geotechnical earthquake engineering. It focuses on the uncertainties associated with the seismic surface wave testing and how they can be reduced using the borehole information. I will initially talk about the motivation behind this topic Then I will explain in brief the MASW test, which is one type of surface wave test. Then I will move to the numerical model that we have considered. And finally, I will show my analysis, results, and conclusions. The Mexico earthquake in 1985 demonstrated an interesting phenomenon called the local site effects. The Mexico City, situated around 350 kilometers from the epicenter, suffered devastating damage. 412 structures got completely damaged and around 3,000 structures got partially damaged. Later, it was found that whichever buildings got damaged were located on very soft soils, which were the lake deposits. On the other hand, in the same city, the structures located on rock sites such as UNAM suffered negligible damage. The same thing was verified by the motions recorded on the two sites. The response spectra clearly indicates that the spectral acceleration at the SCT sites are significantly higher compared to the UNAM site. This led to a conclusion that during an earthquake, the waves may travel tens or hundreds of kilometers in any direction, but the top few meters below the soil surface plays a major role in the damage to the structures. And therefore, the understanding of local site effects is very important from the earthquake point of view. Now, why do we require surface wave testing? We know the importance of local site effects, and to study them, an important parameter is the shear wave velocity profile of the soil. And to get that, the most popular methods are the surface wave methods, particularly the MASW method or the multi-channel analysis of surface waves methods. But there is an issue with the Indian codes on earthquake that they give very less importance to the local site effects, unlike other codes such as American codes or Euro codes. Let us now see what is the MASW test. This is the field experimental setup of the test. This is the hammer which is used to apply the blows on the soil and generate waves. These waves are then recorded on this number of geophones which are placed in a linear array. This is just the step one. Overall, it's a three-step process. Step one is the data acquisition, as we saw. In the step two, using the acquired data, we make a plot between the phase velocity of the Rayleigh waves and frequency, which is called the dispersion curve. And finally, using the dispersion curve, we prepare the VS profile of the soil. This seems to be a very simple process, but there is uncertainty with this test. Suppose we have an experimental dispersion curve from the MASW test, but when we do the inversion, a single curve provides number of shear wave velocity profiles which are equivalent to this curve. Now, which one is the best one? We can't say directly. So this is the uncertainty with this test. Our work focuses on how to reduce these uncertainties using borehole information. For that, we have simulated the MASW test completely numerically using the finite element method. This is the soil model that we have considered. The load was applied on the top left corner and the signals were recorded on number of receivers placed on the soil surface. These are the soil properties that we considered in our model. And this is the load that we applied on the top left corner. It is a velocity pulse. Let us now see the analysis and results. After applying the loading, recording the signals, and doing the processing, as in step 2, this is the final dispersion curve that we obtain. But now comes the most important part of our work. The next step is the inversion and generation of VS profile. What we are interested to know is what will be the difference in the results when the inversion is carried out without any borehole information and with the borehole information. So we considered 3 cases. The first 2 cases are those in which there is no borehole information. So we must assume the number of soil layers because we don't know anything. So in case 1, we assume that there are 3 layers. In case 2, we assume that there are 5 layers. And in case 3, now we have the borehole info. We know the actual number of soil layers. We also know the thickness of the layers. And using that, we carried out inversion. Let us see the results. In case 1, we can see that there are number of VS profiles, and even at a single depth, the value of VS for different profiles is ranging from a very small value to quite high value. In case 2, again, the same thing is visible. The data scatter is quite high. But when we see the case 3 results compared to case 1 and case 2, in case 3, the VS profiles are very much confined to a narrow band and the uncertainty is reducing. But how can we quantify that? To quantify, we have made the box plots of the shear wave velocity for each layer. Let us just focus on layer 1 results. The box plots show the minimum value, maximum value, median, 25th percentile, and 75th percentile. So they represent the variability in the results. For case 1, we can see that VS is varying from around 170 to around 200 meter per second. For case 2, the variability is even higher. But in case 3, when the borehole information is available, the VS value is varying from around 175 to 180 meter per second. That is a significant decrease in variability compared to the previous 2 cases. If we look at the results of layer 2, layer 3, and layer 4, the same thing is observed that whenever the borehole information is available in the case 3, the variation in the VS values is significantly less. So these are the conclusions from our work. Whenever an MSW test is carried out along with the borehole information, the final results in terms of the VS profiles are very much confined to a narrow band. And therefore, it can be strongly said that the uncertainty associated with the MSW test is significantly reduced when we have the information about the number of soil layers and the thickness of soil layers. It is recommended that any study on local site effects using the MSW test should be complemented by any other tests such as standard penetration test or some other test which can provide the borehole information. There is an opinion from our side that the Indian code on earthquakes should give sufficient importance to the local site effects, because in India also during the Bhuj earthquake, significant damage at the Ahmedabad city was observed due to the local site effects. Also, it is a high time now that there should be a dedicated code on seismic surface wave testing, which should provide the guidelines on how to conduct the testing and help everyone. These are our references. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Aniket, for your very clear and interesting presentation. And the topic is very relevant right now. And I will request our presenter over here for the question answer session. I think you are the last presenter in this session.
Can I ask a question, Ankit?
Sure, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nice presentation, Ankit. My first question is, I am seeing your dispersion plot actually. You are able to see only one mode of propagation.
Yes,
See, when you carry out an MASW test, uncertainty can be minimized if you try to have different modes present in the model image. Understand? So right now what is happening is we are having only one fundamental mode is present. So one fundamental mode may not be sufficient enough to capture and provide you a unique answer. But if you are observing all of your different model curves in the model image, then you can minimize the your uncertainties which are there in determining the shear wave velocity. Did you try to make any attempt in capturing the different modes?
Sir, yes, you are right that if we get the different modes, then it is better. But one thing in our profile, what we considered, it is a normally dispersive profile. So whenever the profile is normally dispersive, the other modes are not so much dominant, and the fundamental mode is dominant. And whatever studies I have carried out,
okay,
or I have referred the literature, they have said that for normally dispersive profile, we can go with the fundamental mode.
Okay, and what was your sampling rate during the measurement? How many sensors you used?
In the numerical simulation, I kept 72.
No. I'm talking about your site testing. In the site testing, once you're having a number of geophones,
Yes, sir.
So what was the sampling rate you adopt in measuring the signals? You understand the meaning of sampling rate, na?
I got, sir. It
Yeah.
was 1024 hertz.
1024 hertz. And what was the range of frequency you are observing in the signal? In the signal, whatever you are detecting in the site, your minimum and the maximum value of the frequencies.
4 to 24 hertz.
Okay. And how many number of sensors you are using it?
In the field, normally we use 24 receivers.
Okay.
But here, whatever I showed, it is numerical simulation. In that, I have used 72 receivers.
Okay, in the numerical simulation. And right now, this numerical simulation you are carrying out by one of the software. Which software you are using? Are you using Plaxis Dynamics or something else?
Sir, we used Abacus.
Abacus with the Dynamics provision.
Yes, sir.
And did you provide the right vertical boundary, a provision to absorb all the waves? Can you show me once again your domain, what you have chosen?
Yes.
Right vertical boundary and the bottom vertical boundary. Are you providing any provision to absorb the waves which are going to reflect from the boundaries?
Yes, sir. Actually, we thought of that. But, sir, I'm just going to this slide.
Otherwise, what is going to happen is if you are using a fixed support, waves will reflect from the boundaries and you will have some issues.
Yes, sir. We thought of that.
The right vertical boundary, I am seeing you provided a hinge support.
Yes, sir.
And in the bottom also, I think you have provided a fixed support.
Yes, sir.
So if you don't provide the absorbing boundaries, then the wave will get reflected and they will affect your answer.
Yes, sir. What we did is we selected the model dimensions based on the criteria given by Aun and Leon 2011. They said that to avoid the reflections, the model dimension should be kept at a minimum equal to lambda maximum, 2 into lambda maximum. So here, if we calculate lambda maximum, it is 760 upon 4. So 190 into 2. So 380 meter.
Okay.
So based on that, we get the model dimension 400 meter by 400 meter.
But
so
you have not providing you have located the boundary quite far away, but no attempt was made to absorb the waves. Am I right? Na? Okay, fine.
Yes,
last question.
But sir, one more thing. We actually checked the signals also. Whatever recorded signals we checked, and we verified that there is no reflection.
Okay, fine. Last question from my side. This load is a line load or it's a point load?
Point load.
Point load. So you are carrying out an axisymmetry analysis.
Yes, sir.
So whatever analysis you have done, it is for an axisymmetry case. Am I right? Na?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Done from my side, Professor. Rajiv.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your very informative
thank
questions.
you very much. Thank you.
I can see one question in the question chat box. So Aniket, Mr. Anand has put a question for you. Have the outcomes of the MASW results after considering the subsoil profile, I mean VS profile, compares with the cross-hole seismic test? Should I come again?
Yes, I got it.
Okay, fine.
Actually, we have not conducted cross-hole test, so we cannot say anything about this.
Okay. So fine, Mr. Anand, I think he has.
Aniket, in the Abacus, you have provision for absorbing boundaries?
I could not see till now.
Okay. This is a follow-up to Professor Jain's question.
Okay.
The question what has been asked by one of the audience, I think is very, very interesting. If you want to really validate your answer by MASW, cross-hole, bore-hole shear tests are the best tests.
Yes.
In order to validate the answer. Otherwise, if you want to extract the sample and carry out a test by using a resonant column test, you won't be able to do it. So you can think of planning such work in the future. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, sir, for the right direction. I have a very, not question, just I have a suggestion or to understand from you regarding the Mexico City wave. You have shown just now. So I'm also doing in the similar direction of work. Always we are concentrating our eyes on shear of velocity profile. Obviously, this is a very primary mandate for doing the seismic analysis, local side effect. In addition to that, I feel, and the other researchers has already shown the boundary condition is a significant issue for the site amplification and the maximum damage in Mexico City earthquake. What do you feel, Aniket?
Boundary condition.
I mean topographical effect.
Yes, sir. The topography effect, basin effects, directivity effects, they all come into picture, and they all can cause significant damage. They can amplify the motion. Yes.
Because your approach may be an integrated approach. Only shear of velocity profile, obviously, this is an important parameter for the seismic analysis, ground analysis. But I feel so the topography effect, the basin effect is a very another important concern for these amplification issues. Why I'm telling, because we are doing some work. We are always talking about the amplification in soft soil. When people are seeing soft soil, it is being interpreted as a amplification potential, amplification ratio. But we generally, from the point of view of damping ratio, if you see the soft soil, it is also producing a significant damping ratio as compared to other material. So I don't know, this aspect should be also worked out, the boundary effect as the damping ratio, and integrated approach may be give a crucial guideline. And you have rightly pointed out, there should be a dedicated code for the, I think for this particular local site effect in our Indian code, from my side.
Thank you, sir.
So I think we have already completed our presentation. If I have the permission of the chair, we have actually, I have missed out one question, Professor Ambajagan probably.
Yeah, Anbalgam has asked a question. I think I also saw later on the chat
later on
box.
also actually.
Yeah.
Neetu is present in the platform. Yeah, Neetu is present. Neetu, can you hear me? Neetu?
Yes, sir, I can hear.
Yeah, just for you a question. What type wave was generated by impacting hammer in soil? That is a very
She
meaningful
actually
question.
answered it. She said
Yeah.
about shear
Yes.
wave only. I remember it. I also asked
P
a
and
parallel
X,
question.
P waves and Rayleigh waves are the.
I think you have incorporated 3-axis accelerometer. So obviously all different waves will be
Yes.
regulated, and
Yes,
after,
sir.
if you analyze it, you can speak more which one has. Obviously, generally P wave will be coming first. So far I understand.
Okay, sir.
So thank you. We have a very meaningful session. Over to session chair.
So I think we have finished our job well in time. So Dinesh,
Sir, one more question. If
yeah,
you
please,
permit.
please.
This question, I think for Aniket, I think Harsha. So it is an axisymmetric analysis with dimension of 400-meter width, and hence the total length could be 800 meter. In general, viscous or free field boundary with plane strain condition can help in easy analysis and low solver time. What do you feel, Aniket?
Till now, whatever earlier studies I found, numerical simulation of MSW, they have all done the axisymmetric model. So I have not thought about doing plane strain. So I don't have any idea about it.
Okay.
Let me tell you from my side, if you want
Sure,
to
sir.
carry out a plane strain analysis of any problem, computationally you are going to save the time. It's going to take lesser time, but it is going to reflect your line load. It will not be representing your point load as you'll be actually having it in the case of MASW. You'll be having a point load in the MASW. But if you carry out analysis for a line load, plane strain analysis is always much more computationally economical to generate the data. Yeah. Sigma theta, your hoop stress variable will not be coming into picture. Epsilon theta will not be coming into picture once you carry out a plane strain analysis. So that is going to be additional thing which will be saving it if you carry out a plane strain analysis. Yeah. So any more question from any other delegate?
I think question from the chat box, it's almost, we have answered all the questions.
Yeah.
And now this is the time to end, sir. Ending up the session. I think it is 1:21. We have
actually one
sufficient.
query from my side, from Professor Dinesh actually.
Yes, sir. Tell me.
Whatever we are able to see here in the list here in our thing, these are the only people which are able to attend this session, or there are some people which we are not aware, which are present in the Q&A section.
Maybe
What-
others also can view this.
That is what I'm asking you. Do we have any idea how many people are viewing it?
No, I have no idea. It is almost-
Yeah, same. We cannot have
want to
any
wait.
idea.
Yeah, fine. So if the number is always more, the people always get a better impression.
Yeah.
That this particular talk is being attracted by many participants. Huh? So I think just a query from my side. Huh? That's what I thought I will be able to know from you. Yeah. So thank you very much. Huh? Yeah.
Thank you. Now over to Professor Dinesh sir.
Thank you, sir. The last one item is there. You need to select the best paper for best paper award. These should be from the students, maybe MTech and PhD scholars that you are aware, I believe.
Right now you are saying that out of the talk
You can communicate to me later, sir. So
later, no problem. Huh?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine. Huh? So I think myself and Dr. Rajiv
We
will
can talk.
indicate you not about the special lecture. Huh?
Not about the special lecture.
Yeah.
Special is special only.
Special.
are not
Yes, sir.
Students are eligible.
Students.
Okay,
Students are
fine. Huh? Yeah, okay. Then,
Session
huh?
wise. You can communicate to me through email.
Okay, fine. Huh?
Session.
Okay, sir. I
Thank
will have
you.
a discussion. I will have a phone call to you.
No problem at all. Huh?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. Huh? Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Professor Jayant and Rajiv, sir.
yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks for your kind invitation. Huh?
Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Thanks to
Thank
sir.
you. Very
Stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So I'm leaving right now. Huh? Yeah,
Sure.
thank you.